So what you just heard and what you just read is the fallen goddess scenario. Now, this is a myth. This is a myth like no other myth in the world. You know, professionally speaking, I am a comparative mythologist. So I have studied the creation myths of every culture in the world, and I'm not exaggerating. Not only the Abrahamic religions, but also of all indigenous cultures, the Navajos, the ancient Japanese. I've studied all the creation myths because every culture naturally, of course, also the Nordic and Scandinavian creation myths, which unfortunately are in very bad shape, and there's not much remaining of them that you can make any sense of. But I've studied these different creation myths. And I can assure you, and this is inarguable, and no one on the planet can refute what I'm saying to you now, that this story that you just saw is the most complete, comprehensive, coherent creation myth ever produced by human imagination. There is nothing that compares to it. And it is a complex myth. It is complex and beautiful in a way that I just don't know how to tell you how beautiful it is. And the way that you learn this myth is by, first of all, reading the narrative, the story in 9 episodes. You'll find it in the book. But it's not just something that you learn. It becomes a part of you. It becomes your part of your view of life. And you live the myth. You learn to live this myth. And as you live this myth, it guides you. The ancient shamans and teachers of the mysteries, men and women of extraordinary intellectual sophistication and vision, called themselves teleste. This is a very precious name. It comes from the Greek verb telein, which means to lead or guide or go to a certain conclusion. The Greek word telos, which means aim or purpose. So I translate teleste as those who are aimed. So when you are in the Sophianic narrative, you are aimed, like an arrow is aimed by the sight of the archer. And what aims you is the power and the beauty of the story. And I'm sure that all of my students and beloved friends here who know this story well, raise your hands, would agree that it is the beauty of the story that is like nothing else. But it is not for everyone. It is a complex myth. So you saw, I'll just comment on 2 terms. You saw the word demiurge, demiurgos. And that is the word in the Sophianic cosmology for what Jews, Muslims, and Christians call God. And something that happened in the 1st and 2nd century of the so-called Christian era in this world was that Christianity began to become developed as a belief system and as a religion. And the Gnostics, or who called themselves the teleste of the mystery schools, saw this development. They were living at the rise of the early moments of Christianity. Do you understand? The definition of the ritual of Christianity, the dogmas, the ideology, the divine incarnation, the recognition of Jesus as the perfect human being, and all of that was developing, and they were horrified by that. They said, this is so wrong. This is such a lie. This is such a bad thing to teach the children of the Divine Mother. And although they were extremely private and anonymous, men and women, they took the responsibility to come out in public and debate these early Christian ideologues, okay? And one of the things that the Gnostics said was that, oh, by the way, we'd just like you to know that we've been here for about 6,000 years, and our tradition has developed a deep and complex story about the humanity and why it's here. And yeah, sure, your demiurgos is part of our story. That divine being you call God, who gave you the Old Testament and the New Testament, and then later on gave you, the Quran, which is after the Gnostics. Yeah, we know, but we're going to tell you that he is an insane alien. And he is an enemy to humanity. And one of the reasons why the Gnostics, probably the main reason why they were destroyed, physically destroyed and murdered, like the murder of Hypatia. Their libraries were burned. Everything they wrote, and they wrote enormously, was destroyed. Their sanctuaries of the mystery schools, because they were schools. One of the reasons is because they said that what you, Abrahamic religious people, call God is actually an enemy of humanity. It's a demented alien. And they had a name for this alien, which is the name Archon. So two of the things that you saw, those of you, I don't know who of you in this meeting do not know the narrative yet, but you saw this word demiurge, and you saw this word Archon. And these are terms in the narrative that explain a lot of stuff. They explain a lot about the situation that we are in and what is wrong. What is wrong? What is going wrong? You see, there's a good news and a bad news coming from a Gnostic like me and a heretic, The good news is we're in a divine experiment, and I can tell you who set it up, why it was set up, how it was set up. I can tell you who your divine parents are, how they designed you. I can tell you all this. I could speak to the last minute of my life telling you all this. It's all knowable. You can know it just as I do. Bad news is that the demented entity that they were warning about has actually taken over the minds of many, many people. So we're living in a divine experiment. That's the good news. It's her experiment. We're living in her womb. You see, there's a difference between the birth of a normal human child and the birth of the magical child of Sophia. The normal human child grows in the womb, and then it is expelled from the mother's body, and here we all are, right? We all got here in the same way, didn't we? The difference is that you, as magical children, are living in her womb. And that womb is the atmosphere of the earth. It's her womb. So you're living in a divine experiment in the womb of the Divine Mother. But this experiment has gone wrong. And the Gnostic knows why it's gone wrong. I know exactly why it's gone wrong. Believe me, it's no vague idea. And I have talked about this so much, and this is where the subject of the archons come up. Carlos Castaneda called them the flyers. And Carlos Castaneda was just talking with someone about Castaneda, was an American shaman, folk hero, celebrity, who spoke like a Gnostic in many ways. And one of the things he said was that you have in your mind a foreign installation. Now, that was exactly Castaneda's term. You have like a chip. We all have it. And it's a foreign installation. And the Gnostics also warned about this foreign installation. They called it the archontic program. And there's two ways that you receive that archontic program. One way is that you receive it in religious teaching. The religious teachings of the Abrahamic religions are the instrument of this archontic program. That is it's alien. It doesn't even belong on this planet. That's a fact. And so in the practice of Gnosis, you learn this, and you learn how to clear that archontic program. There's another way the archontic program operates. I don't think I'll be able to talk about it this evening, but I just made this poster just to give you an idea. Everybody know what that is? Is it the same word in Swedish? Right. Or a pathogen, or a pathogenic virus, okay? You got it? You got the word? Okay, the good news is you're living in a divine experiment. And the purpose of the experiment, from the point of view of those who designed it, which is Sophia and Thelete, because there's a male and female designers, there are no transgender variations in this cosmos. Okay? They designed it for you to become an instrument of pleasure, play, delight, bliss. You are designed to be all that. And you may well be all that. Some of you, I don't know you. You could already be that. I'm sure you are in that already, and so am I. But they're not. You get me? They're not. Most of the human animals walking around on the planet are not like that, and they don't want to be like that. Why? Because they are pathogenically infected with a virus. So there is an actual way to talk physically about the Petri dish, the experiment on this planet, as being infected by a virus. And what is happening, finally, I'll give you the third technical term from what you heard. Correction. What is this Swedish word? This notion of correction is, to me, I would guess I would have to say now, at my age and after all I've been through, I think it's the single most powerful idea I have ever encountered. In all of my studies, in all of my mystical experiences, in all of the books I've read, whatever, correction. And the Gnostic myth that you will learn, if you want to, is an open-ended myth. It's not like the myths of the Abrahamic religions that say beginning, middle, and end. God knows everything. God created it at the beginning, and God knows how it's all going to work out. No, you are responsible for how it's going to work out. You are responsible for correcting the problem with a divine experiment. This is one of the things that the myth teaches you. So when you learn the sacred narrative, which we call the fallen goddess scenario, if you take it to yourself, if you take it to heart, then it comes with a responsibility. Do you hear me? It comes with a responsibility that we are going to correct this experiment and we are going to bring it around to its divine and delightful outcome. But I have to add that that cannot be done without a very serious fight. It cannot be done by love. It cannot be done by tolerance. It cannot be done by compassion. And I'm not sorry to tell you this. If you haven't heard it before, if you've never heard it before, then go away from this meeting. We cannot solve the problem of humanity with love. It wasn't love that got us into the problem. It was an alien factor. There is an alien factor working in human society and working in the human mind. And my students here and great loyal friends, I'm sure they would agree, you can talk to them about it as we mingle, that the recognition of this alien factor is one of the most powerful elements of Gnosis. Is that not true? And it changes everything that you relate to, but it also changes your basic sense of compassion. or the illusion of compassion. Because I'm going to tell you point blank that it's highly probable that you who sit before me this evening who think you have compassion, you only have the illusion of compassion. And Gnosis breaks this illusion of compassion, and that is a tremendously powerful experience. You might think, this is not sentimental what I'm telling you about here, She's not sentimental. She's not sentimental. She may have created everyone, she may be the mother of all human beings, but she doesn't care about a lot of them. I can tell you that. Now, you may not believe that. You may think I'm completely crazy and perverted by saying that. But that is the truth. Because it's her experiment. And this experiment has been interfered with. And Gnosis explains all of that, and you can, in ways that you can verify it. I have verified it hundreds of times. And then you can turn and you can look at what's happening in the world today. For instance, let me just point this out, okay? I'm going to talk for 25 more minutes because this is going fast. In the surviving materials from the Nag Hammadi writings, okay, which is the main source of this Gnostic myth, it talks about the demiurge, this insane, demented god. So the God that most people worship is an insane, demented being. This is what Gnostics said. And for saying that, they were murdered like Hypatia. They were murdered for saying the truth. Why didn't the Christian ideologues that were around them just say, oh, those crazy Gnostics, those wacky, crazy Gnostics, They're saying that our Jehovah and our God is a demented alien who's working against humanity. Well, it's okay. Let them say that. They're fools. It won't make any difference. Well, it would have made a hell of a difference. It would have made a huge difference if they could have come out and said that. And they did come out and said it, and they got killed for it. But that's not how it is today. I'm saying it to you today. And I'm telling you that there will be a fight to uphold this truth. And there is no resolution for a better world without a fight. And this fight has to do with one factor, one key factor among all others. When you read Fallen Goddess Scenario, you'll see that I cite certain texts, that I draw it from the text. And there is a line in one of these texts that describes the nature of the demiurge, who is this demented god. And it says that he did not observe the place where he arose. Now, this line is incredibly powerful. He did not observe the place where he arose. So, what the myth says is that this alien arose, which is very interesting how this alien appeared. We're not going to go into that this evening. And it was like a species of a cyborg robotic entity. This actually exists, by the way. But it doesn't exist on Earth. It exists in the solar system. It cannot live on Earth. And that in the nature of this locust-like entity, like an insect, like a locust, did not observe the place where it arose. What that means is that it violated boundaries. And if you want to know the presence of this evil element in the world today, just look at what's violating your boundaries. What's violating your boundaries? And who's helping what to violate your boundaries? And when you see this, am I talking about the obvious? Am I making any sense? And when you see this, this narrative will explain to you why this is happening, going all the way back to the origin of this world. If you are willing to take the time and the responsibility to learn it, it will teach you how this problem of the violation of boundaries, that is to say, in your presence, in your world, there are other human animals who did not observe the place where they arose. To put it in plain English, they don't belong here. You get that? And yet, those religions, the Abrahamic religions, will tell you, well, you have to accept them because you are a human being. And as a human being, you must demonstrate love and compassion. And you must accept people who are violating your boundaries, who hate you, if you haven't got that yet, who have no gratitude for what you give them, which you earned and your parents and your grandparents earned. No gratitude. They want to take it all away from you, and they want you gone. This is the archons. This is the archonic program. This is what is wrong with this experiment. So I don't want to go too far down that road because my blood's up on that subject, obviously. I just want to bring it around in my last 20 minutes here to this picture. Okay? Now this picture concerns what you get with religion. Okay, I'm going to move this over. What you get with religion, coming from God, is 4 components, and this is absolutely universal. You can go to any religious system or any belief system, and you see it consists of these 4 components. First, you get a narrative, which is story. Like the Old Testament, Adam and Eve, they ate the apple, the serpent was there, So the Jews have their story, the Christians have their story. It's the same story. Don't you see that by now? The Muslims, they have some version of the story, whatever their minds can grasp. And it's a narrative. So there's always a narrative. There's always a story connected with each religion. Then there's the rituals of the religion. So you can just ask yourself, well, what are the rituals of Judaism? I'm not going to go there right now. What are the rituals of Christianity? Well, the Mass to the Catholics, or they go in church and they sing hymns. What are the rituals of the Protestants? So they all have certain rituals. They have certain costumes. Then you have the organization, which is the churches, the priesthood, and all of that, right? And then finally, this is the killer. This is really the killer. This is where they control you. It's called values. Now, I've heard people say, some people who recognize, say, things are not right in Europe, things are not right in Sweden. There's some things happening here that are really sinister and evil and sick. We're going to solve it. We're going to turn this problem around. And how do we do that? Well, we should get back to our Christian values. Excuse me? Well, we're like, what are Christian values? You see, along with this complex of religion, the belief system, the faith, come values, which is to say, I'm going to tell you how to behave. So what is one Christian value? Love your enemy. That's a Christian value, isn't it? Didn't Jesus say love your enemies? Do good to those who harm you. That's a Christian value, isn't it? You want to go outside this door and you want to go out and practice that value? Let me see you do it. Let me see you do good to somebody who harms you. Let me see you put these values into action. When you actually look at these values as a sane, sober human being, you realize that they're completely insane. And that you really can't practice them. Yet, there is a massive assumption that is shared by many, many millions of human beings, which is why they go to religion. Even though they may in some ways feel that religion is dead, it doesn't touch them, it doesn't really move them anymore. But they go to it anyway. Why? Because there's this saying, maybe you've heard this said, well, you can't have values without a religious framework. You have to have faith to have values, right? So if I have faith in Christianity, that I embrace the values or the moral rules that Christianity gives me. Am I making this clear? That's your package. It's a package deal. Do you get that? Religion is a package deal. If you buy the narrative, maybe you want to discard this. Maybe you don't care about the ritual. You don't want to go to church. You don't want to. But if you accept the narrative, you have to accept the values. For instance, the values as stated in the New Testament that say, the Ten Commandments. Well, what are these? Well, these are rules of behavior. Well, the Boy Scouts have rules of behavior too. I was in the Boy Scouts. Do you know what the motto of the Boy Scouts is? Be prepared. So who wrote, and there are 10 or 15 rules. There's be prepared, and there are 10 or 15 rules of the Boy Scouts. You know what the Boy Scouts are. Yeah. So, well, who wrote those rules? Did Jehovah write the rules of the Boy Scouts? Well, I could say he did, and there were people who'd believe me. That's how bad it is. So, who wrote the rules of your behavior? Who wrote the Ten Commandments? Well, you're back in the problem of God again. There was once a bearded man, and God contacted him, or he contacted God, and God said this, and God said that, and God also said, you're all my children, I created you all, and this is how I want you to behave. These are your rules of behavior. That's what's called Christian values or Islamic values. All right? That's your morality. Now, I don't get my morality from there. No. I get my morality from my instincts and from a certain sense I have of what it is to be a human being. So I'm going to conclude by going to that subject. Because in addition to this picture, of course, this is a vast subject, and I'm just, I'm ice skating on all this, right? But in addition to this picture comes really what I would call I don't know what to call it. It's like, this is what they really knock you out with. They confuse you. They intimidate you. They tell you that you're not a good human being if you don't treat everyone with love and compassion. All of this goes on from the moment that you're a child, and even if you grow up and you're fortunate enough to grow up as a child who isn't subject to this religious indoctrination, everyone else around you is pretty much. So do you want to face the human condition or you want to run away from it? I don't care. If you want to run away from it, you can ignore all this. But if you want to face the human condition like a courageous individual, then you've got to face this. You've got to face what has gone so wrong in our behavior by following the rules that are said to come from this God. And on top of it all, it gets worse. You haven't heard the worst part yet. I'm going to conclude with the worst part. But remind me to say something funny or happy at the end, okay? I had something, and it slips my mind now. Anyway, they give you your concept of humanity. And that is probably the single worst thing that comes from religion. Made in his image. Oh, you are made in his image. There is the great Father God. There is a divine Father. There is the divine this and that. And you are made in his image, They give you your image of humanity. I gave some talks recently when I said, and this is truly a Gnostic formula, when I said, whenever you think of humanity, which the Gnostics call the anthropos, you want to think of it in two factors. There are two components of your humanity. the sense of humanity that you have in yourself, if we can speak of that, and the sense of humanity you see when you see someone else, right? So it works both ways, right? I've got my sense of humanity here somewhere, and then I look at you, and I see the humanity in you, right? This perception has two components. One component is an idea. You have an idea of humanity, you have a picture of it. And the other is a gut feeling. It's a sensation, it's a sense of humanity. So those two things together are what connect you to all of the other humans living on this planet. And the problem is that you are told, that those who are brought up in the religious traditions are told that God and God's messengers tell you who you are. They give you your sense of humanity. And that's a lie. What they tell you is a lie. And I'll tell you this about your sense of humanity. It's like currency that you have in your wallet. It's like a form of currency. Now, but it's a very special form of currency. Okay? Because, first of all, let's look at currency. Okay? So I have some Swedish crowns in my wallet, right? I have this currency, this money that allows me to go out and transact with people. Okay, your sense of humanity allows you to go transact with people, right? But where did I get this currency? Did I steal it? Did someone give it to me? Or did I earn it? Now, if I earned this currency, I feel really good. I have dignity, and I think I earned this currency, and so if I trade with this currency with you, the trade is a valuable trade. And you recognize that I earned it, and you give me currency that you earned. You see? That's valuable currency. But with the currency of humanity, it goes even deeper. Even deeper. It's not just the currency that you earn, it's a currency you print yourself. You see, the problem with the sense of humanity is it's only valid if it's your own product. It's only valid if it's your own product. Do you get this? This is how Gnostics talk, by the way. And we talk this way all the time. It's only valid if it's your own product. The sense of humanity that we all grow up with is not your own product. It's given to you externally. But because you are a human being and you need that sense of humanity to function, you immediately take it on yourself, and then you go and you act as if it is your own, but it's not. So one of the great challenges that comes with the Gnostic way, and this is fundamental to Sophianic animism, is that we are going to, each individual member is going to produce their own sense of humanity. But they are not going to be all different. They're all going to be the same. This is a great paradox. You will arrive at the same product, but only you can make that product. Just can you get your mind about this idea? There's a complete uniformity in the product, but only you can make the product. No one can give it to you. And where does this Gnostic view of humanity come from? I'm going to leave you on that note because it's the best message that I can leave you with, I feel, this evening. Well, I said a while ago that there's this word, humanity. It's a big deal. It's a big mess. Horrible mess. Humanity is a horrible mess. And everything you've been taught about it is bullshit and lies, pretty much. Even in New Age teachings. I don't care. You name anyone. I know them all. And yet there is an option to have a sense of humanity that is so simple. It's a simple formula. And what you have to do to work this formula is you have to know what is the concept of humanity, which I call the imaginal part. Because to grasp humanity, you have to imagine it and you have to sense it. You get that? You have to imagine it and you have to sense it. And you sense it out of here. You know in here. It's right in here. It's not in your heart. No, it's in your guts. And the sense of humanity comes from here. It comes from the earth. And the concept of humanity for Gnostics comes from here. Not from God, but from here. I'll tell you what that is in a moment. So what I said not too long ago was that you have actually never seen, no one has ever seen a human being. You have never encountered humanity ever in your life. What you have encountered is a racial strain of humanity. It always comes in a racial strain. It doesn't come pure. There is no pure humanity. And one of the biggest lies that comes through Christianity is that there was once a very pure and perfect human being. That's a complete and absolute lie. There will never be and can never be the incarnation of a pure and perfect human being. That's a lie and a delusion that comes from the archons. So when you meet someone, everyone you meet is made out of three components. They have a race, they have a place, and they have a language. That's it. And this in totality is what is race. This totality is what is race. You can never look at race alone. You have to say place. And then you have to say language. And those three components, the RPL, you can say, that's really your DNA, is your RPL. So, what's your RPL? You can go to someone and you can say, what's your RPL? What is your racial strain? What is the place that you came from? And what is the language that you speak? And that's the only form that you encounter a human being. You do not encounter a human being in some universal human form. Because the universal human form is only an act of imagination. It's not it's something that you add, So when I look at all of you here, I see you with a double vision. I recognize you by your race, your place, and your language. And I add to that the concept of the universal human. It's something that you have to add. You make the product yourself. Okay? And this is what we are doing in Sophianic animism. This is what all the racialist talk is about. I have to warn you that this Gnostic knowledge is extremely racialist. That's a fact. And it does not buy the concept, well, everybody's the same, we're all human beings, we all have human rights. No. This doesn't play in the Gnostic world at all. And I'm just getting around to beginning to say that. And that's what I'm going to talk about now, since I've already laid the groundwork for Gnosis. I'm going to go for the kill. But I'm not going to do that here this evening because I know you think I'm a pretty sweet guy, and I wouldn't want to give you another impression. Now, I am a really sweet guy, aren't I? And I'm really kind. And I mean no harm to anyone except those who intend harm. And for those who intend harm, I mean harm. And that is the value that you cannot find in Christianity, because it tells you to what? Do good to those who harm you. You know, Sweden will never get out of its mess and find itself again and restore itself to a safe and beautiful, thriving country. Nor will Spain, nor will France, nor will Germany, the Netherlands, unless they get out of the Christian ethic. There's no other way. You can't survive. It's already brought you to this disaster. It brought you to this disaster. You have no obligation. I'm speaking now to this one occasion. I may never have another occasion to speak to Swedes that I already know and some as I don't know. You don't have any obligation to love or accept anybody. No obligation. You have no obligation to be a loving human being. I don't claim to be a loving human being. And yet ask people who hang out with me, am I a loving human being? But I don't claim to be. That's the problem, you see. It's the claim falsifies the reality. That's the problem. So what I want to do as a final note is to cite for you one of the really beautiful fragments of mystery knowledge that has survived. Now what I'm going to cite for you now is 3 lines that come from an object which is called the Petelia amulet. And it was discovered in Petelia, which is in southern Italy, and it is dated to about 400 BC. And actually it's a little square of silver, gold foil. It's just, you know what gold foil is, gold paper. And written on it are these lines. Now these lines that I'm going to tell you come from the heart of the mysteries. As a matter of fact, it's probable that someone who was initiated into mysteries at that time received this, and they wore it as an amulet on inside of something on that, carried it on their body, because it was to remind them of what they had received. So I'm going to give you exactly what they received, and it sounds like this. There are 3 lines. Okay? These lines. Remember when I was talking about recognition, okay, and how important recognition is, that you recognize your mother, right? These 3 lines are the lines that for which you can recognize your humanity. These 3 lines. And they go like this. I am a child of the starry heavens. No, first line. I am a child of earth and the starry heavens. That's the first line. I am a child of earth and the starry heavens. But my origin is in the heavens alone. In the heavens alone. Those are the 2 lines. And the third line is, you yourself know this. You already know what I'm telling you. You yourself know this, and only you can know this. No one can tell you this. Even though I'm telling it to you, I'm not telling you. It's like a Zen thing now. I'll be the Zen master. The Zen master says, I'm telling you when I'm not telling you that I'm telling you. Right? Okay, I can be that. I like to be the Zen master. Yeah, I can tell you this, but in fact, you can only know it by telling it to yourself. I am the child of earth and starry heavens, but my origins are in heaven alone. You yourself know this. And that is where we go to the recognition of our humanity now. When values depart from faith, and when people have the courage and the sanity and the sobriety to let go of the Abrahamic infection called religion. Gnosis is not another form of religion. It is an alternative to all religions. And that's why nobody likes it, and that's why they won't recognize it in interfaith. And the rabbi won't invite you to have breakfast with him on Saturday, for sure. And the Christians won't like you because you're a heretic, you're a Gnostic. But it's only the heretics and the Gnostics that carry this future with Sophia, and the wave breaks from the north. It starts here in Scandinavia, of all places. And the last thing I would say, because I'm going to shut up now, is that it might be asked, well, John, have you investigated Scandinavian and Nordic and Icelandic mythology for evidence of this goddess myth? Because even though I restored the goddess myth in its what is called the Levantine version, because it comes out of Syria actually, but not from Arabs, from white Aryans like the Persians. You know that Iranians are not Arabs. Did you know that? Yeah, Iranians are Aryans like us, okay? So it comes out of there, but as a mythologist, I would say, well, didn't the Japanese know about the goddess Sophia, if she's the ultimate mother? Didn't the Navajos know about her? Didn't the Aztecs know? So I've gone into all these cultures to find her name. And I found her name, and I found her evidence of her in all these other cultures, but there's not much of it. And the reason why there's not much by now should be obvious, because it was completely wiped out. So if you go into Scandinavian Nordic lore and into the Finlandic and Eddic sagas, you're looking for her, you're not going to find her. No. Because the Christians did such a spectacular job in obliterating the evidence of her, because the evidence of this story and this divine being is the greatest danger to them. They have been fighting it for centuries. They know that if it gets out and it gets into the hearts of mind of people, it's game over. Because no one will play along anymore with the rules of behavior that they have told you must play. Observe human rights, be compassionate. You can be compassionate in a selective way. You can be tolerant in a selective way. I'm not totally discarding those things. So anyway, I did all this research, and then I came up with the name. So, if you want to know what to call her in your native language, you call her Ostara, which is the name of the goddess of the dawn that was known to the Teutonic and the Germanic peoples. So Ostara, O-S-T-A-R-A, is the name of the wisdom goddess in the Nordic and Scandinavian mythology. So you may call her that and get to know her by that name. And she will respond to that name. It's a beautiful name, Ostara. Sort of means the egg star, Ostara. And so there you have it. I'm going to conclude with a brief song called Spellbound. And I wish that you all will be spellbound by the greatest witch of all time, which is Nadia, who's singing. No, I mean it's the Aeon Sophia is the greatest witch of all time. But we have our witches that we love too very much. All right. Okay.
Chantala